Hey, this is Paul Lathrop from the Polite Society Podcast, reminding you that this podcast is a member of the Self-Defense Radio Network. Check out all the other great podcasts on the network at selfdefenseradio.net.
Welcome to Unload and Show Clear, powered by Match Shark. Listener ready? Stand by.
Welcome to another episode of Unload and Show Clear, a podcast about the men and women who compete in IDPA matches around the world. I'm your host, Lloyd Bailey. IDPA, International Defensive Pistol Association, was formed out of the concealed carry movement in the United States back in the late 1990s, based on the founders' desire for a sport based on real-world defensive skills and not fancy equipment. IDPA matches are a series of stages that are based on realistic defensive scenarios and a test of a shooter's gun handling, accuracy, speed, and problem-solving skills. Men and women from around the world compete in IDPA every week, and here on Unload and Show Clear, we introduce you to some of those people. Everyday people. We talk one-on-one about their careers, about how they got into guns. We're interested in people and not in politics. The people who make IDPA great, they're not professional athletes. They're just everyday men and women, your neighbors, your coworkers, your public servants, your kids' teachers, the people who clean your teeth. And you're going to meet one of those great people today. And for 2020, Unload and Show Clear is powered by Match Shark. If you watch videos from the 2019 IDPA World Championship, for example, you'll see shooters who had to deal with the discomfort of shooting in sometimes heavy rain. Now, if you were at that match or with me at the 2019 Arkansas State match, you know how much fun shooting a match in the rain can be. Pasting and scoring targets is even more fun. You can't see the scoring zones, the pasters don't stick, the targets eventually disintegrate. Contrast the Arkansas State targets to the World Championship targets, and there was a huge difference, and that difference was Match Shark. Match Shark's patent-pending target shields keep targets dry even in heavy rain. They are reusable. The cost of the shields is quickly recovered by simply patching and reusing the shields over and over again. That reduces the number of times the targets have to be replaced too, and it makes your staff happier because setup and scoring and teardown are easier. It also makes the shooters happier because they can see the targets and they can easily paste them. Designed and manufactured right here in the United States, owned and operated by Will and Chris Schmid, whom you've heard here on this show, who are IDPA shooters themselves and experienced match directors. They understand the challenges that match staff face when dealing with bad weather. So let them help you run your matches faster and smarter and make it a better experience for your safety officers and your shooters. Visit matchshark.com today. Get everything you need to be prepared for your next rainy day match. Spring's coming up, and we all know what that means. Lots of rain in the forecast for your match days. Be prepared. Visit matchshark.com and find out more about their awesome products. And we are so excited that they are a part of this show this year. Our special guest today is Naomi Moss from Bakersfield, California. Naomi, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you. It's nice to be here.
Well, I'm so glad to get a chance to talk to you. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us what you do for a living there in Bakersfield.
Actually, I am a firearms instructor. I teach concealed carry classes, hunter ed. I volunteer with the Well-Armed Woman. I'm as a chapter leader, and I just am surrounded by guns all the time. So
awesome.
Yeah,
Now,
that's me in a nutshell.
You in a nutshell. That brings up all kinds of cool questions. Now, are you a California native?
For the most part. I've been in the Bakersfield area since I was 5.
Okay.
So, and met my husband in high school. We got married. Actually, I was in high school. And he joined the Army. We spent 3 years in Colorado and then came back. So,
Okay.
for the most part, I'm a Bakersfield native.
Okay. So you've spent the better part of your life, as I like to say, behind enemy lines, and yet you are a gun girl. You teach firearms. You teach people about firearms. You teach hunters ed. How did this happen? Where did the interest in guns come from?
Well, so my parents were divorced, and my dad moved to Missouri and he has family there. And my grandparents had a farm, so I'd go back in the summertime when I was like 12 and 13. And he would take me down to the creek, and we would shoot on the farm, just 22s.
Right.
So I, familiar with guns. I laugh now. He would always say, "Come on, we're going to go hunting." And I have to this day no idea what we were hunting. It was pretty much a walk in the woods with a 22. Fast forward, my husband, we got married young, and he in the Army. He ended up purchasing a handgun when did he purchase that thing? Like 93, 94. And it just kind of sat in the safe.
Right.
And so it wasn't a big deal for me. It just kind of was, we had a handgun.
Right.
Not a big deal. And as we had more kids and they're growing up and life is revolving around kids, it wasn't until 2009 that my husband's like, "I want you to have a gun. You're with 4 kids. I can't be there all the time. I want you." He was starting to travel a little bit and working late hours, and he's just like, worried about me. And I went, "Okay, whatever."
Right.
So I spent about 45 minutes in the gun store. I had never fired a handgun.
So that gun that he bought, I'm guessing he bought when you guys were in Colorado?
Mm-hmm.
And it sat in the safe until 2009, pretty much?
Well, he would take it out every now and then. Like it was there. It
Right.
wasn't it wasn't, I don't know. He would take it out every now and then, but he wanted me to have my own. So when I went, mind you, I'd never touched a handgun before.
Right.
And going into it with the idea of of personal protection. And so I spent about 45 minutes, and my husband did the best thing ever. He walked me up to the gun counter. He told the salesman, "Whatever she wants, we'll buy," and walked away. Note to all you guys out there that want your significant other to have a gun, don't buy it for her. Let her pick it out.
Yes.
Anyway, so I ended up with a Glock 19. So that was my first gun. I bought it purely on the fact that it was simple and there were no buttons, nothing to push or engage before I had to shoot a bad guy. So
not overly complicated, just right.
And then, so that was my first handgun. So that was August of 2009. And closer to the end of that year, mind you, I put mine in the safe and I didn't touch it. I had no idea what I was going to do with it. Right. I never shot it before. My husband ended up.
You had a matching set in the safe, at least.
Right. He finally one day is like, "I'm going to go shoot your gun. Do you want to come with me?" And I went, "Oh, well, sure, I'll go." I think we went out and shot cans or something. So anyway, shortly after that, my husband started hearing about IDPA, and he was like, "There's this shooting competition, and it's designed around defensive shooting." And I went, "Oh, okay." Mind you, the shooting competitions were so foreign to me. I just never heard of any of them. So I had no idea what to expect. So when he said shooting competition,
that's a big leap.
Right? Well, I envisioned, and for the most part, he was talking more about himself wanting to do it.
Right.
And he wasn't trying to get me involved. He was just more, bouncing ideas off of me, saying, man, I want to try this. It's, from a holster and a moving and behind cover. And I think it'd be kind of cool to, finally use a gun in that manner. And I went, okay, whatever. I have no idea what to expect. But I have to tell you, though, what I envisioned with shooting competition is like 20 people standing on a line just shooting as fast as they can. I had no idea what was going on. Right. The idea of moving and shooting with a gun it didn't click. So I ended up thinking, okay, well, so he signed up to go to a match in January. And he's like, oh, you should bring the kids out. And mind you, I think they were, the youngest may have been 4 to 10, I think were their ages. And I have four kids. Mm-hmm. So they were, smallerish, not quite toddlers, but anyway. So he's like, oh yeah, you should just, I got to get out there early to register, but why don't you bring the kids out? And I thought, oh my goodness, I'm bringing my children to this shooting competition. What is, okay. So I do have to tell you before I move on, I am pretty competitive by nature. Okay. So I had no idea what to expect when I took my kids to see the shooting competition. And when I got there, everyone was standing around. And I thought, oh, that's odd. Now I know better. But that, everyone had their guns on their hips and, standing around talking. And then all of a sudden I'd see everyone go down range and they did something to the target. So I thought they'd all walk back. And then one person would be on the line. Some guys behind him was, the timer. And I went, oh. And then when I heard the beep and I saw that shooter run and start shooting, I went, oh, I get it. And then when they were done, he had guns in his holster and he's walking around like everyone else. And so my husband explained that the safety protocols of it, the gun doesn't come out, you only when you're instructed, and yada, yada. And it was like a light bulb went off. And right. I went, oh my gosh, I want to do this. So the next month we ended up, got a babysitter. Friday night, he had a range bag with his gun and all that. And he gave me, I had an ammo can that had my ammo, my holster, and my mag pouches.
Okay.
Somewhere in there, I had eye and ear protection. And so I had my little, and my Glock was in my Glock case because I didn't even have a bag for it. So we're all packed. He got a phone call that he had to go into work the next day. And I said, oh, that's not a problem. I said, we can always go next month. It's, this is something that they do every month. It's not a big deal. And he goes, but you're ready. You want to go, just go without me. It'll be okay. So I went,
wow.
Well, he goes, you'll have fun. Go ahead and go without me. And I went, okay. So I went to my very first IDPA match by myself, and I only knew one other person I had met the month before that my husband just said, hey, Naomi, this is Jeremiah. Nice to meet you. So I recognized Jeremiah, and I said, can I shoot with you? He goes, oh, yeah. And anyway, he was so sweet, and they walked me through everything, and it was so much fun. I was hooked I tell people I was hooked competition shooting before I even fired a shot.
Right.
So, anyway, so that was in February of 2010, and here we are. So,
wow.
Yep.
So you went from never shooting a handgun to
Right.
owning a handgun to let's go shoot competition
Right.
to hooked.
Yes, nothing like going like 0 to 90 in 2 seconds.
Right.
Anyway,
You did say you were competitive.
I did, and it was fun. I have always loved shooting fast, and over the years, it's taken me so much to get to the point where I'm not out shooting myself, if that makes sense.
Right. I totally understand.
You know, down 1, down 6, down 8, down. They're not just happy as a clown. Everyone's just like shaking their head at me. Naomi, you're missing. What? Oh, okay. Anyway.
So what changed from there? You got hooked. Your husband went off to work. You got hooked on IDPA. When you got home that afternoon, what was the conversation like? And how did your life change after that? Obviously, you're now a concealed carry instructor and a hunter's ed instructor, and you're involved in all these other things. So it's obviously snowballed.
Oh, yes.
What's happened? Give us a little taste of what's happened since then and how it's changed your life.
So that year, probably 2010, 2011, going out and shooting, quickly I noticed that a lot of the men out there, their wives or girlfriends would come and watch.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, it is so much fun. Like, don't be on the sideline watching. You got to come out here and shoot. And I realized that most ladies are not as willing to jump in as I was.
Right.
It just not just in general, and definitely generalizing.
Right.
Most women want to go and see what's going on. And then I did that. Once I found out what competition really was, not a bunch of crazies standing on a line all shooting crazy. But so I had ladies say, well, my husband took me out. You'll like this. I'll say, my husband took me out shooting and he makes me so nervous. I don't like it. And I said, oh, well, I'll take you out. You can go with me. And I'd get so many ladies that would say, oh, I would definitely go shooting with you, or I'd go out with you. My husband, we butt heads or whatever it is on the range. And so I figured if I was going to be teaching ladies, I should probably take a class and make sure I'm doing it the right way. So 2012, I got my NRA basic pistol instructor.
Mm-hmm.
I loved it. I loved being a student, even though it wasn't like an instructor class. Mm-hmm. I just loved learning more about the gun and teaching. I took a lot more NRA credentials. I became a USCCA instructor, training counselor with them.
Had you taken many classes yourself between 2010 and 2012? Or was this another, no, I'm jumping right into?
It was kind of I'm jumping right in.
Awesome.
So I figured, I know how to shoot. And I was kind of fortunate because the guy, my training counselor, this is bad, but I picked him because he was cheap. And I was like, if I have to spend 2 days, I have to get a hotel, I have to get food and just all the incidentals of traveling.
Right.
I'm like, I need to do this cheap. And so it turned out he had been doing it so long, it was just his prices were low. And he was a phenomenal instructor. I was just so blessed that I had him first. And he said, I'll never forget in that first class, he said, don't get sucked into dogma. Always learn. There's always something to learn from anyone you take classes from. Don't get sucked into one curriculum. Don't get sucked into one teacher, one method. And that stuck with me. I really enjoyed his teaching style and how he conveyed information. And I went back to him for subsequent instructor credentials. And then in 2000, I started taking a few classes myself as a student, just like, okay, I've done, instructor class. I need to be a student as well.
Right.
So I started doing that, more probably, I would say like 17, 18, 19, that more of the recent years I've taken more classes as a student. So,
okay.
Yeah. So I kind of did it backwards, but
why not? It seems to work.
Right.
So after getting in and diving headfirst into IDPA at that first local match, how long before you decided to get out there and try your hand at a sanctioned match, at a really big match?
You know what? It wasn't until 2017. So for me, when I started teaching, I started teaching basic classes in 2012. I didn't start teaching CCW until 2014. I didn't feel comfortable enough doing it right away. But I found I started teaching more than I was shooting. So I was only shooting local levels. When someone says they've been shooting since 2010, you think, oh, every month, they're shooting, or, multiple times a month. But for me, it was more like six or 8 times a year. It probably between 2010 and 14. In 2015, the Well-Armed Woman opened up for a shooting team. And I applied for that, and I was chosen to be a part of the Well-Armed Woman shooting team. I'm still on the team to today, so it's been quite an honor to be there for 5 years. But what I did that kind of to put myself first, so to say. I would have to make time to shoot for me. Right. I found that teaching all the time, it's like, okay, I'm teaching and everyone else is having fun. I got into this because I like to shoot.
Right.
So, I had commitments of so many local matches and 1 or 2, I can't remember how many sanctioned matches a year. So I actually started doing my first sanctioned match. I forgot about this. I actually flew to Texas. It was it's outside of Wichita Falls.
Silver Dollar.
Yeah. So it's a tier 4. I think that was 2016 that I did that.
Okay.
That was my first sanctioned match. I just, jump right in. Nothing that I could drive to or be local. We're going to fly halfway across the country.
Yep.
First time flying with airplanes and everything. Or first time flying with, my handgun.
Firearm, yeah.
Yes. So anyway, that was crazy. I finished kind of bottom of the pack. Mind you, I'm still a marksman, had been shooting for how many years. But like I said, a month, 6 times out of a year, just with kids and their activities,
Life happens.
It does.
Yeah.
So I was kind of bottom of the pack. And then I think I can't remember what else I did that year. 2017, I actually had a freak accident.
Oh.
On the range. I was actually a student in a class, and I had a ricochet off a steel. The jacket came back and entered my wrist and did quite a bit of damage.
Oh.
It was pretty crazy. I was in Phoenix, and it did got 3 tendons, a nerve, and an artery.
Whoa.
Well, total freak accident. So now the common question, before I move on, the common questions I get are, how far away was the steel? It was about 12, 15 yards away.
Mm-hmm.
Was it divoted? No, it was actually brand new MGM steel. It was bought for that class. The angles on it, it was hanging, low. As an instructor, nothing looked out of the ordinary. It was just a total freak accident. So I was out, pretty amazing surgery. 3 weeks post-surgery, I started therapy. And so it happened mid-March, and I had signed up for the Silver Dollar Championship again. That was the end of April.
Right.
I had bought my plane ticket the week before I was injured. So I'm like, okay. My thing, had I not had the plane ticket, I would have backed out. I figured they would have given me, registration back or something like that. But since I was out of plane ticket, I was, well, I'll go. Won't push it. If I can't finish, I can't. I'll try. And I said, if there's, I won't shoot left-handed. I'll take a penalty. It was my support hand.
Right.
So 6 weeks post surgery, I finally got 2 hands on the gun. I was able to actually hold the gun 2 hands. I think the match was 7 or 8 weeks after surgery. I could not rack the slide when I went. Everyone listening is probably going, what is she doing?
How in the world? You couldn't could you grip the gun with?
So yes, I could. So it was my support hand, my left hand, my support hand wrist was injured. So gripping, I didn't quite have a lot of strength to grip.
Okay.
So I could hold the gun in my left hand and rack it right-handed. So my goal was to just, and that didn't hurt. I could just hold it and it was fine. So the morning of the match, I'm getting ready and my wrist is, I can feel it constantly. Each day it was getting better at that point. And I said, I'm going to try it.
Oh, gosh.
So I gripped it and I punched out, racking it, and I racked the slide. I was totally beside myself that I did it that morning. So it was 10 stages, 10 or 12 stages. I can't remember. I ended up, to give myself a break, there were no left-handed stages or shooting that match.
Oh.
There was the year before. And I think I shot 3 stages all strong hand just to give my wrist a break.
Right.
And my goal was, number 1, to finish. If I couldn't, I gave myself some leeway there. And if I finished, to not be last. And I did okay. So I think I actually did a little better than I did the year before too. So there's a little bit of improvement too.
Well, cool.
So those are my first 2 big sanctioned matches. In 17, the fall, I went to the Western. I didn't, marksman shooter, kind of finishing toward the bottom of it. And I remember coming out of it, and I talked with a local shooter that we shoot with, and he's master class shooter, and shooting stock Glock. And I had a long conversation with him. I'm like, okay, I can shoot better than this. Help me through this. And he's like, Naomi, how much do you dry fire? And I went, well, I'll be honest, not a lot. He goes, start there. He said, how's your grip? How's this? I said, I teach the fundamentals. I feel like I got all of that. And he said, okay. He goes, you're probably right. He goes, so dry fire. I came out of that in November of 2017. My husband and I signed up to do a sanctioned match in Southern California in February of 2018. He had to get classified. And I can't remember what he was shooting. So we did a special classifier in January, and I went, oh, I all of a sudden was a sharpshooter. And I went, oh, well, there you go. So I went to this next match, totally nervous, and I'm new class, and totally going to be last. And actually, I wasn't last. Kind of middle of the pack, and sharpshooter. I had purchased a new gun. I went from shooting a Glock to actually a 1911, a Springfield 9mm. So that match in Southern California was actually pretty. I did okay. It was definitely an improvement, and I could see it. So I committed to dry firing some more. So I spent 2018 dry firing a lot. I got in April of 2018, I did our local club, the Five Dog Action Shooters, has done in the past a regional, and I ended up getting High Lady there. Nice. And then in the fall, went to the Western, and I got High Lady in 2018, which totally, that one actually kind of, I don't want to say surprised me, but I was, oh, okay, I feel like I can compete now. Sometimes it's hard to see when you're at local matches, and with always finishing with the same people, and, you don't always see or feel the difference. So that was a huge step for me to go, oh, okay, maybe I can do this, I've been doing it for so long, I should be able to. So last year was another year of dry fire, and kind of expanding into a few other disciplines as well. Right.
What's the biggest thing aside from dry fire? What's the biggest lesson you've learned since you got started 10 years ago?
Oh, the biggest lesson. Oh, okay. My biggest lesson in shooting, I think competitively, is definitely the self-discipline to practice. I mentioned 2018, I really stepped up my dry fire. 2019, I was actually kind of midweek scheduling time for myself to go practice, not just dry fire, but just get a little more time doing a little more specific things I can work on. And then the one thing about competition is it's a fun way to practice important skills. Drawing from a holster is something that we don't always get to practice all the time. And I know IDPA is designed around that defensive mindset. Getting back to it, yes, it is still a game. It is still, competitive, but we can still practice drawing from our holsters, quickly, efficiently, get on target, be accurate under stress, learn to move our feet and shoot in awkward positions. And it's fun. The camaraderie in the sport is just, I made some fabulous friends in the sport. So that's something that, I would say that is a lot for a life lesson, though. But yeah, definitely the discipline and the practice of skills is probably what I get out of competing the most.
Well, as we kind of wrap things up here, and you've sort of alluded to it, but I'll let you elaborate on it a little more. You started 10 years ago, but like you said, you haven't dedicated your life entirely 100%, 10 years of nothing but IDPA. You've done all kinds of things with guns in those 10 years, but but IDPA is where you got your start. IDPA is sort of near and dear to your heart. What is it about this sport beyond just that sentimental? That's where I got my starting. That was my starting point in competitive shooting and with guns in general. What is it about IDPA that's special to you and keeps you coming back? What do you love about the sport?
I like the people I shoot with. Our club is great. They design great stages. We have an old car we'll pull out and shoot out of sometimes. Sometimes we'll shoot around it, getting on the ground, table starts, they're really good about mixing up stages, designs, and putting close targets at. So we'll push out targets 30 yards out, maybe even a little longer. And they do a great job of it. It's always a surprise when you get out there, and it's always testing your skills and pushing you in shooting. And the people are great, like I said earlier. And I'm so thankful that I get to shoot with them each week.
Yep. The shooting community is truly amazing, and it's the people that time and again that seems to be the overriding thing that keeps people coming back, and it's why I'm doing this podcast, and I'm so grateful to you for taking the time to do this show. Thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me. I really enjoyed this. This was a lot of fun.
All right, that's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for your support. Thank you to our guest for coming on the show. And thank you to our awesome sponsor, Match Shark, for making this entire season possible. If you would, please take a minute to check out our website, Unload Podcast. Lots of cool previous episodes are there, links to all sorts of great information. Just check out the guest list as well. Join the Facebook group, too, if you want to connect with other fans and get updates on the latest news. You can find that at unloadpodcast.com/Facebook. Check out our YouTube channel. We've got a lot of cool videos there at unloadpodcast.com/YouTube. And if you'd like to support the show personally, consider becoming a patron, just $1 a month at patreon.com/unload. And for your support, I'll send you out a sticker and you'll have my undying gratitude for your help. If you or someone you know would make an interesting guest for a future episode, you can contact me at unloadpodcast.com. Just go to the contact button in the menu at the top of the page and send me a message. Or you can send me an email at Lloyd, LLOYD, at unloadpodcast.com. Tune in again next Thursday for another episode of Unload and Show Clear, powered by Match Shark. We are a proud member of the Self-Defense Radio Network. Be sure to check out all of the other pro-freedom podcasts at selfdefenseradio.net.